Joining me now is Marshall Koval. He's the CEO of Luminex Resources. Great to see you, Marshall.
Yeah, great for having us today, Mark. Thanks.
Now, Red Cloud viewers will know that we've talked to various people from Luminex Resources before us, such as Scott Hicks and Leo Hathaway. But I personally have not talked to you yet, so we're looking forward to this. Can you give us your take, a brief overview on your projects in Ecuador?
Yeah, so Luminex was started when we spun all of our assets in Ecuador out of the original Lumina Gold company, where we're advancing the Cangrejos project. We just completed a PFS in Lumina Gold, but when we entered the country in 2014 through about 2018, we acquired several assets, and we were the second largest concession holder in Ecuador at the time. And Cangrejos had advanced to a development project, whereas the rest of the assets were earlier stage. So we moved everything out of Lumina Gold into Luminex that was not Cangrejos. So today, Cangrejos is the only asset in Lumina Gold. And in Luminex, our flagship company, our project is is Condor. And then we have a JV with Anglo American and Jogmec, and then we have several other properties in the package. So that's the genesis of how Luminex came about.
Right, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Anglo American in just a moment. Now, in terms of drilling results, you've been delivering your best ever lately, and also your team discovered a new breccia zone adjacent to Cuyes West. So what are the highlights from that, and what's the significance of that discovery?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Mark. So if I step back for a second, Condor, we have about 6 million ounces of gold in all resource categories, and then about just shy of a half a billion pounds of copper. So we've split Condor into two areas, the northern area, which we did a PEA in 2021 at $1,600 gold. It had an NPV of 371 million, 12-year mine life, and it would produce about 187,000 ounces a year. And part of that was an underground target at the camp zone that was 2,500 tons per day of throughput. And the rest was open pit, sort of breccia zones that we were looking at. So what we've done now is we've gone back in and focused on this higher grade mineralization, both at the camp zone and this new Cuyes West discovery, with the idea, instead of a $600 million initial capital cost project with open pit and underground, that we'd have two potential underground higher grade targets that we would rescope a PEA eventually. And this last year, sort of the tail end of 2022, we've discovered this Cuyes West zone, which is the highest grade mineralization that we've encountered to date on the project. And most of that has been sort of 4 to 5 meters in width and grades from 5 grams per ton up to 30. So it's really exciting. And while we were continuing to drill this Cuyes West zone, we made a new discovery on this breccia zone, which we hadn't known about it previously. And so that may potentially be able to come into a mine plan down the road.
Right. Tell us more about that based on these new discoveries and these new zones at Cuyes West. Do you increasingly believe that, along with the camp deposit, that you do indeed have the makings of an underground mine with these two deposits?
Yeah, great question again. So the camp zone, we had about 600,000 ounces of gold in that previous mine plan, and it put out in the PEA about 70,000 ounces a year of gold over about a 7-year period. The Cuyes West zone is higher grade than the camp zone, and we've got 28 drill holes into that right now. We've released results for 22. And in the last news release we put out, we mentioned this breccia zone that we encountered. So the breccia zone, we've got 3 drill holes into it. It's about 200 meter intersected plus 1 gram material. And it's about 120 meters, 150 meters vertical from the topography. So that's been real exciting. But the big key is we're continuing to drill another 8 to 10 holes on this Cuyes West zone, the high grade zone that I mentioned earlier. And that's definitely going to go into a potential mine plan and a PEA once we do a resource on it in the future.
Right. So with that PEA, you want to bring that out eventually, but are you in sort of a chicken and egg situation in that you keep expanding the resource and you want to incorporate that into the PEA?
Yeah, it is a bit of a chicken and an egg scenario, but I think we're looking at a fairly significant high grade zone that we've developed here at Cuyes West. To give you an idea of the scale of it, the camp zone was about 450 meters long strike and about 400 meters at depth. And there were 39 drill holes in that to define a resource. And we're looking at a similar type zone at Cuyes West and looking, with this current drill program to get about 40 drill holes into it. And then we'll be able to do an internal resource. And based on that, we'll have to make a decision if we put out a new resource and void the PEA technical report, or if we move forward to a new PEA that would likely be sort of, instead of a 25,000 ton per day initial project, it'd probably be the higher grade camp zone in Cuyes West at maybe 4,000 or 5,000 tons per day. We'd bring down the initial capital cost from 600 million, maybe cut that in half and be able to get a smaller scale project, then eventually bring the breccia zones in that were part of the PEA previously, and maybe this new breccia zone that we've developed with the current drilling.
Well, that's interesting perspective for sure. Now, Marshall, recently we interviewed your longtime colleague, Ross Beatty, largest shareholder, I believe, at the Luminex Resources and founder of the Lumina Group. And he acknowledges that it's early days, but he thinks that, Condor North is on trend and in the same rocks as Fruta del Norte and Mirador. And he's hopeful that you're sitting on something similar. So are you aligned with that kind of thinking? What's the data telling you, and what are your expectations?
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of interesting. I mean, both Fruta and our project, we're immediately to the south of Fruta's concession, are in what they call the Suarez Pull-Apart Basin. And so it's a structurally controlled fault system with volcanics and quite a bit of other mineralization in it. And, if you look at Fruta was not a target that outcropped at the surface. It was a hidden target, and a bit akin to, say, the breccia zone that we found. We didn't know that it was there. It's a hidden target. I'm not saying the breccia zone or what we have is a Fruta del Norte, but the geology is the same, the mineralization's the same, the structural environment that host Fruta del Norte extends down into our property, both at Condor North. And then, one thing I didn't mention also is beyond Condor North, we have another 3 million ounces of gold in our Santa Barbara deposits, a gold copper porphyry system. So I've worked in the industry over 40 years and I'm a geologist by background. It's one of the most mineralized areas I've seen for gold. And as we continue to understand the structural and setting of the geology, we continue to find more deposits like Cuyes West, and we get surprises occasionally like this breccia zone. So, there's a chance for further discovery. Fingers crossed that we find something significant on the order of Fruta del Norte, but no guarantees there.
Well, that's saying a lot if this is one of the more mineralized properties you've ever seen in your career. Now, I want to move along and get back to Anglo American and that arrangement whereby they're going to invest nearly 60 million over 7 years at the Pegasus Copper Project. Can you elaborate on that relationship and the thinking behind it and the potential at Pegasus?
Yeah, so Pegasus is our largest land package that we have in Luminex. Right now, Anglo is working on Pegasus A, which is about 37,000 hectares. They're currently in the field drilling now. Their initial drill program is at a target called Medusa. It's a copper porphyry system. There's some initial drilling that was done by previous operators at a shallow depth that definitely defined a porphyry copper system. So Anglo's in there right now drilling a 3,200-meter drill program. They just started that recently, and hopefully we'll see results over the next several months. So it's real exciting. But beyond Medusa, Anglo's done a lot of field work, and they've identified 8 total porphyry targets within that land package. It's quite large, as I mentioned, and they're systematically working their way through them. So we're hoping for success at Medusa and continued work by Anglo to develop these other 8 targets. Now, Anglo can earn an additional 10% by taking them to 70% by taking us to a production decision. So, we're really glad to see Anglo in the field. They've been a great partner. So we're waiting to see what kind of results we get there.
Lastly, Marshall, we know the price of gold has been perking up. So has so have the shares of Luminex Resources. Two-part question, basically. What is your take on the gold setup and the tailwinds and conditions for gold right now? And secondly, the perception, you think, from the investment community toward your company?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I mean, gold's in a real good place right now. I'm also on the board of Equinox Gold with Ross, and we've seen with this uptick in the gold price, we've seen the majors, the mid-tiers operators start to have their prices move up pretty good over the last several months. What we haven't seen yet is it moving all the way down into the junior explorers. So our price has come up. We sit on any metric that you look at the company. There's a lot of upside potential. We don't feel like we're fully valued. And I know every CEO will tell you that. So I think it's in a good place right now for investors to take a hard look at Luminex. And we will continue to have drill results coming out at Cuyes West. Hopefully we'll see some results in the next few months out of the Anglo work. So I think we're right at the stage where, we already have 6 million ounces of gold on the books and about 500 million pounds of copper. So the value of the company is well underpinned by gold and resource, both indicated and inferred resources, and we're continuing to discover mineralization. So I think we're in a good place there.
Great to talk to you today, Marshall, and to get an update, and we'll talk to you again. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Okay, Marshall Koval, he's the CEO of Luminex Resources.